So thanks for joining us. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, thanks. Welcome everybody to the PMSIG. It's starting to take off a little bit. We're hoping to, turn it into a nice community of people that can get to know each other. We also host the QA-SIG, the Quality Assurance Special Interest Group, and that happens on opposite months. So this happens on the third Wednesday of even numbered months. Pardon me. And the QA-SIG happens on the third Wednesday of odd numbered months. And you're welcome to do both. They're both free. And we usually have some pretty good speakers. And I think tonight is no exception. It's Courtney Thomas on a subject of effectivity in project program and let me see, I can't read my notes. And project program and project management. So I'm sure I'll have a lot more to elaborate about on that. And as usual, we're fortunate to have John Bach host the festivities as the MC sort of. And so I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for joining in, and over to you, John.
Yeah, thank you, Joe, for being a sponsor of this. Started a year ago, kind of as a almost as a dare. And someone said, I was speaking at QA-SIG as a PM on my experience having moved over. And Shelley thought it would be a good idea to try and sponsor. And so here it is, a year later, every other month, second Wednesday. And I'm pleased to introduce tonight's speaker, Courtney Thomas. He is a coach that I have personally benefited from at a conversation we were having not too long ago. He evoked a really interesting analogy about psychological safety in the organization and how we can get to that. And I thought of this cliff analogy, and he encouraged me to post it on LinkedIn, and it kind of led to some really good conversations about that. So Cord he started working at eBay actually in IT and marketing and spent 5.5 years there. He's had roles in Scrum teams, a Scrum Master, product owner, project manager, and just the last 2 years, he set the standard operating procedures for project management for eBay marketing operations, where I am. And he also owned the global marketing e-learning platform and responsible for all the e-learning, including Lean and Six Sigma training and marketing operations training. But a very skilled coach as well, and I'm very eager to see what he has to say about being effective as either a project program or product manager, which is the 3 Ps, and they're all embodied in PMSIG. So welcome, Cord, and whenever you're ready, take it away.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Yeah, and let's hop in. So let me give you some expectations for today. So in terms of objectives, obviously find some new tips and tricks to improve our effectiveness, our effectivity as PM. I have the experience, but also through my coaching practice, that's about 3 years of coaching. Also have done quite a lot of therapeutic trainings, different things, psychology. This is going to be a great start, and I think there's a lot of things you all can take away from today's presentation. So number one, see if we don't find ourselves making some of the common missteps when it comes to effectivity. Number two, go over planning. Learn to work with those that prefer not to plan. I think that's a big topic. We want to remember that 50% of people naturally really are against any kind of planning. And so we will definitely have people in our teams, in our project teams, in our product teams who would prefer not to plan. And there's a great way to work with these people to keep them happy we have later in the presentation. Number three, we're going to take a new look at what MVP, minimum viable product, might mean in our lives, and we're going to take it a bit further. Number four, try out a stress and anxiety reduction technique. We're actually going to do that right off the bat here. That can be practiced in the office or anywhere. That's a good one. And then number five, we're going to look at a template for effective meetings. So just a quick introduction from myself. As you've already heard, yeah, I was a two-time junior Olympic medalist in Taekwondo. That was back when I was still very flexible. I guess I still am, but yeah. And I've spent over 10 years actually in the Czech Republic. And that's where I was at eBay. And I'm currently traveling. Here below, you can see a picture. I was in Costa Rica the last month, and I'm now at the Oregon coast visiting my family. I do want to say, feel free to shoot any messages, any questions, comments into the message box or into the chat, the Q&A. John's going to be handling that. If you have questions that you don't want to be answered in front of the group or are sensitive, feel free to shoot those to me at coaching.praha@gmail.com. Cool. Let's move on. So stress and anxiety reduction technique. So we're going to start with this because I want you all to focus in. This is a great way to focus in and be ready for any kind of presentation. So give your problem solver a rest. When we talk about where stress and anxiety come from, those things come from your problem solver. Psychologists would split your brain into two halves. Either you have a problem, you're problem solving, or you're noticing. So we have a problem solver brain and a noticing brain. And in terms of, yeah, what we've all experienced many times, contacted in 5 different places all at the same time, too many things to do on my to-do list, don't know where to start, feeling negative emotions and not sure why, having trouble breathing or a stomach ache. These are all great times to practice this technique. So I'd like to invite you all to quickly close your eyes and take a deep breath through your nose, out through your mouth. And what we're going to do is try and really get into the lower back, expand the lower back. Okay. Now, send your thoughts, send your brain to your feet. We're going to notice everything below the ankles. What kind of signals our feet are sending us? We might feel tingling. We might feel if our feet are warm, are cold. We're still breathing. We really want to focus in on just noticing. If a thought pops up, that's okay, but we want to return to the exercise, not let it take us away, not start down the rabbit hole. We can move up to anything below our knees, still breathing. Still breathing, we can move up. We can feel how it is to sit against the chair we're on. And we can include the glutes, the buttocks. How does it feel against the chair you're on? Hard, soft. You can feel warmth in different areas as well. Okay, we can move up a little bit higher. Go ahead and activate your belly for me and take that deep breath again. You can feel how that breath is sent right into the lower back nicely. Noticing what the body is telling us. You can notice your heat or being cold. How does your shirt hang on your belly? What about your lower back? Are you tense? Does something hurt? We can move up to the chest as well. When you take that deep breath in, how do your ribs expand? How do the lungs expand? You can feel all that, notice all that. Upper back. What about your hands? What are you doing with your hands right now? Feel free to put those on your knees. And you can notice if your hands are sweaty, are cold, clammy in any way, or not. Dry as can be, relaxed. Still breathing. We can think about our arms as well. How does our shirt hang on the arms? Are we cold, warm? maybe we can feel how we exercised earlier. Still breathing, we can move up to the shoulders. What position are your shoulders in right now? Is it comfortable? Does it hurt? Put your shoulders down, send them to the back, and see how your posture changes. We can move up to the neck and up to the chin and through your cheeks, your forehead. Go ahead and relax all that. You can notice the temperature. You can notice how you're feeling. And let's take 3-4 breaths and notice the entire body. What speaks loudest to you? Where are you the warmest? Where are you the coldest? Where do you feel the most pain? What is the most uncomfortable area? Okay, very good. Open your eyes. So again, this is a technique that we are going to be using anytime we are feeling overwhelmed, and this will help us refocus, rebalance, get back in, and be able to be effective again. If you're feeling overwhelmed by fear, that's another time to use this so that you can think about things logically. If you're worried.
A quick question for you, Court. So while I was doing that, it's hard. You said there's two brains: the observing brain and the thinking brain, problem-solving brain. So like maybe I've heard about mindfulness with many people, they can't turn off their mind when they're doing this awareness exercise. Me included in that. I'm thinking about like some work stuff, and it just kind of seeps in. So are we supposed to separate and clear our mind, or just let it be and focus on, you know?
Yeah. We're gonna let the brain do what it wants, but we really want to focus in on noticing. So the difference in that is where in meditation we're looking to clear things out, not have any noise. Here we want to focus so hard that the problem solver brain doesn't have time to activate, if that makes sense. So we're going to focus in so hard on noticing every little thing that's happening that there's not a lot of space for anything else to come. And when it does, it's okay, but I'm noticing. I'm not dealing with the problem. So, oh, interesting, brain. You can go now. Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you. So, and again, if at any point there's other questions or you want to put in to the chat, notice, feel free to do that. Point during the workday, or great to relax before going to sleep. Now, let's hop over and talk about some common missteps in terms of effectivity in project product. So, are we distracted or unprepared? I think a lot of effectiveness boils down to these two questions. If we're being effective, then we are not distracted or unprepared. So yeah, two major groups. And or as a group. So number one there, I have the little rabbit because we are distracted by timelines. 2 deadlines coming up and the team is stressed and anxious about not making them, and therefore are doing more worrying than quality, meticulous work. We can also put overworked into this category because being exhausted and anxious about all the work one has to do counts as being distracted as well, and also heavily affects our ability to function. So that's one group, people that are overworked or distracted. Number 2 here, we have distracted by multiple activities or products happening all at once. I don't know if you've experienced it, but I definitely have. 4 or 5 different projects, and then changing the team of people you work with, changing needing to split your time into percentages throughout the week, 10% here, 20% there, it gets really exhausting, and it always lowers your effectivity. Changing context, changing the type of work, changing the team of people you work with will encourage creativity at times, but limit effectivity. We want to find a nice balance. A rule of thumb for me is that anytime someone is working on 3 or more projects or products simultaneously, then they're either overworked or distracted. I think 3 is a limit for most people in terms of what they're able to balance. And that's pushing it. I think that's worth saying. So number 3 here, roles and responsibilities. People come to a meeting not knowing what to expect or what's expected of them. So meetings or in general on a project, not knowing what to expect. Before someone's able to make additions or gain takeaways, they need to be brought into context and understand what's expected of them. The same thing goes for joining a project. Roles and responsibilities need to be understood for a person to apply themselves. That's basic, but it happens all the time that you're thrown into something or you have someone new into a project, but you don't know quite where they fit in, and they're not going to be able to make good additions without knowing what role they're in. And number 4 here, lack of clear prioritization in a team's or individual's tasks. I have so many clients come to me and say, I want to do 10 different things, but I never know where to start. And a ton of us struggle with this in work as well. We have a huge list of things we want to accomplish, but don't have them prioritized. The same thing in a project. Lots of things to do, nothing clearly prioritized on 1, 2, and 3. And then you're losing in effectivity because people are spending time trying to choose every time they start working on something new. So do's and don'ts to think about from my end. Introduce a long-term vision. Productivity in our communication. Less distractions at the workplace. Oh, excuse me. So introducing a long-term vision is going to help to keep the team pulling in the same direction. Number 2, repeat your priorities. Coming into every meeting or coming into every planning session and saying what the goal is, what the priorities are for the week. Every stand-up saying what the priorities are is really, really going to help keep the team focused in one direction. So that's something that gets lost a lot of times, is that people lose the priorities or they aren't set. Number 3, actively reserve your team's time. Feel free to book someone's calendar for work time. I know if I have someone who spends 20% on a project, on my project or my program, my product, they only have 20% of the time. I'm going and I'm booking their Google Calendar, and they're going to have that booking to spend on my product. So I know that I'm getting that focused time from them and no one's going to be bothering them. I know that's not always possible, but try and do it, see if it works for you, or encourage them to do the same. And spend time creatively coming up with how to save time in the long term. So spending that time brainstorming, spending the time to do retrospectives, spending the time to think about how can we be more effective will always help you to save time in long term. In terms of the don't side, I wouldn't overemphasize due dates. So that's something I've seen a ton where especially product or project or program managers come in and here's the big due date. We have to do everything by then. And if it doesn't happen, then the entire world will end. If you're doing that, you're just adding stress and worry to the shoulders of your entire team and probably yourself. So overemphasizing due dates isn't all that great. If we can stay in reality and say, this is our goal, this is what we want to accomplish, and let's aim for that, then that's going to help everyone to relax rather than overemphasizing it. I wouldn't set too detailed tasks, overly detailed tasks. We want to give people the freedom to say, to be able to set those details themselves too. to not feel micromanaged. Number 3, reprioritizing on the fly. This is a big no-no to me. Especially if you're planning on a weekly basis, this is our upcoming week. Try your best not to come on Thursday and say, okay, we need to finish something different by Friday. Those things can usually be put off, but that's going to kill your productivity, kill your effectivity. And number 4, overload with messages. So some managers tend to constantly send messages to their team. That's a distraction. In general, if you can put block of text or what you need clearly in bullet points or in a numbered list into an email, you're going into a single email, especially, you're going to have a lot more effectivity than overloading people with messages. Okay, so do we really have to talk about planning again? We've all talked about planning 1,000,002 times. I know. I know. Trust me, I know. But we do, because we all need a reminder on it, and there are going to be some new things coming in here. And it's a topic when talking about effectivity that we can't miss. We talk about and do a ton of long-term planning, and that's great for ourselves and our management as product owners or project or program managers, but that's not what brings us team and individual productivity. It is the short-term planning. So, pop over for me. There we go. What is planning? To me, my definition, it's goal setting. Planning is goal setting and laying out the steps to reach that goal. It's as simple as that to me. Now, why do I have a big 50% up there? I was taught that traditionally project managers, product owners as well, should have 50% of their time reserved for planning. Think about that for a minute. My assumption is that the same should apply to product managers, like I said, and the number might even need to be higher for program managers in terms of time spent on planning. Feel free to raise your hand if you also never had 50% of your time for planning on any project you had. Planning is primarily goal setting. That needs to be our number one focus. Without the goals and the milestones, our planning is only busy work. And then setting what needs to be done to achieve those goals. Okay, number 1, goals are not only large scale. Something that I discuss with all my clients is setting goals for short activities, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour. All throughout your day, no matter what you're doing, you should know that there's a goal behind that activity. I'm reading through my emails so that I can focus later, or I'm making a plan for the upcoming week so that I can have a clear plan throughout the week. Goals not being only large scale applies to meetings as well. Having a goal for a 30-minute meeting, even one we aren't leading, such as to be assertive, learn something from the meeting, take away something new, finish work on a project while attending the meeting, whatever it is, the more we set and recognize small goals, the more effective we'll be as individuals, and the less we'll spend time wondering what it is we should do next and what we should be focusing on. Number 2 here. Planning should not be everyone for themselves. So I've seen this quite often, a tendency for everyone to assume that others have time to plan their own work, or oppositely, don't have any plans until their manager. I tell them what they should be doing. I've seen it 1,000 times. A manager who has the next week's planned out and their manager come week after week, destroy it with new higher priorities. When possible, plan upcoming meetings with the project or product team so that everyone's expectations are the same. So that might look like prepping the goals for the upcoming weeks ahead of time, and then asking how much time would the team estimate to achieve each of those pieces. And then ask, okay, if we each need 2 hours to achieve goal X, then can I plan a 2-hour working session on Thursday so that it can be done by the end of the week? This way, the team feels a part of the whole process, respected, and like the plans were something that they wanted as well. Feel free to take ownership of weekly or even daily plans and goals for the team. I know that sounds like micromanagement, but I did mention something in the previous piece, scheduling a 2-hour working session. That doesn't necessarily mean a meeting. That can literally just be a calendar block to be sure that the team isn't distracted by other work or projects during that time, that they should be diving into what you want from them. By protecting the time that should be spent on work done for you or your project or your product, you're helping the effectivity of the team. Giving them a no worries about distraction time to focus. It's okay to say that this week, certain individuals need to spend 3 to 4 hours on a certain activity. So I'll book 2 1.5-hour work sessions for you so that you can make it a priority among all the other work you have going on. I think that's completely okay. Talk to your teams, but for me, that was always great when I had calendar blocks from my manager to work on any given activity. Number 4, it is okay to not multitask. Americans are really bad about this in general. Czechs are a little bit better, but multitasking is not going to save you time in the long term. One of the largest killers of effectivity is not focusing, being distracted, or worrying about other things happening in life. In order to overcome that, we need to focus on the goal, on what we want at that moment, and learn to focus on a single task instead of multiple. The best thing for this is to lead by example as a leader, but also enable and demand your team to do the same. If that means lowering their workload in some areas or delaying something else for them to be able to focus, then do it. In the long term, again, everything will happen in much shorter timelines because people are focused instead of trying to do 5 things, 10 things at once. So I promised this at the beginning, planning for anti-planners. I used to be someone who would get shivers at a tingling up my spine at the word plan. I hated it. Plans for me put me in a box. It felt like I was in a cage, and about 50%, even more Americans have a natural tendency towards not wanting to plan. It's something that they feel sick a little bit about whenever someone wants them to plan. Feels a bit claustrophobic, but these can be some of your best and most creative and productive workers. Just not necessarily on what you need. They're going to work on what they feel like working on. But maybe you yourself are this way as well, that you accomplish a ton, just not what the priority was at the given moment. So I want to give you a quick guide on how to work with these individuals or yourself to help you or them feel more in control and adaptive while getting the results that you want. So number 1, you see a list. Make a to-do list, or even better, make multiple to-do lists. For each project, product, what have you, have that individual see what their to-dos are. That's number 1. Number 2 here, for each day or week, depending on time availability and the size of the task. I prefer putting in smaller tasks, but that's up to each individual. Select one thing that the person takes responsibility for accomplishing as priority number 1, and won't end their day or work week, depending on, again, how we're planning, without that being accomplished. So that's huge, right? Circle one thing. I commit to doing that today. Make a commitment. Number 3, bonus. Everything else on the list is and should be considered a bonus. Are you finished with the first task that you took responsibility for? Do you still have time and energy to continue working? Choose something else from the list. Whatever you want to work on at that moment, it's up to you. You've moved towards the general goal as an individual. Now, feel free to choose whatever you want. Number 4. This gives the anti-planners, as I called them, the opportunity for freedom, the ability to choose what it is they want without feeling like they're locked into rigid plans, all while still moving forward towards their and your, as the project product owner, goals. This style of planning for anti-planners might be something I would consider a use of MVP, or minimum viable product, in the daily life. So we're going to get there in a little bit, but this is a style for me of MVP. I have my to-do list. I've circled what it is I'm applying for today, and that's my minimum, and everything else for the day is a bonus, is extra.
Yeah, I have a take on this, Court, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
One of the places I thought you were going to go with this slide is a nod to different personality types, like the Myers-Briggs identifies me as an ESFJ, right? So I like deadlines. I'm an extrovert,
like
so yeah, I like planning. But I consider myself an anti-planner. I mean, I have a to-do list, but I prefer a Kanban style where I've got to-do, in progress, blocked, and done with Post-it notes. And but instead, even though I have a list of things, sometimes I frame it as problems to solve, or favors I want to do for people, or questions I need to answer today, which makes the to-do list less like a laundry list of boring things I have to occupy, and more like a problem-centered, mission-based journey. Because it's all what problem am I trying to solve? What question do I want to answer? It makes it a little more palatable, I guess, to personality types like me, perhaps. But you use this in your work. You make a nod to different personality types, and you kind of hinted at that on this slide too.
Yeah, absolutely. So personality typing is a big thing. We don't have time for it here necessarily, but that's absolutely great what you said in terms of different styles of to-do listing. I love that. I think for me, the anti-planners, sometimes it's more only personal life, but also you have some at work. Getting them to do the tasks needed is a real big difficulty, because as soon as something else pops up, they're running towards it. they're going, oh, something new, email came, I'm going to go work on that. Or today I don't feel like doing anything other than activity X, which wasn't a priority whatsoever. So it's oftentimes feeling based. So this is a great way to help people focus on what your priorities are as a project manager, or what their priorities are for the day, at least getting that one step towards the larger goal, and moving forward every day towards the larger goal. And then whatever they want to work on throughout the day is a nice bonus, and people feel good about it. So keeping motivated for the people who maybe it's more feeling based, but who work in waves of energy, maybe is another way to put it. Great. So I kind of hinted at that minimum viable product. What everyone has a different description of what that is, but I don't know how everyone else learned, but the picture of a bicycle for me is quite iconic when it comes to MVP. Start with a skateboard, turns into a scooter, then is a bicycle, then a motorcycle, and then the final version, a car. That's what I've seen with MVP. What is good enough to effectively and safely get to work? Probably the bicycle. That's our level of, that would be my level of MVP. Minimum viable product, the minimum thing I'd be happy with using the bicycle, depending, of course, on what country you live in. The idea of MVP is all about setting a list of asks, expectations, or tasks, and then prioritizing them in order of importance to attain the goal, and then drawing a line of where the absolute minimum is to be able to go to market. And anything on top of that is done is a nice bonus. Might not be the exact correct definition, but it's the one I use. So for me, number one, MVP is something that's absolutely fantastic to use in routine. Set your ideal, most amazing daily or morning routine, can be a work routine, and then come up with the MVP. No day, unless there's an absolute medical emergency, and it can't be helped, should go on without you going through your MVP routine. So you should have a minimum on your daily routines of, this is what I do every day. So that for me is huge. Routines are something that really help in terms of effectivity as well, because a person gets into a rhythm, and the body loves to have routines. Number two, the same can be said about team, project, product, or program meetings or routines. If we're in crisis mode, what is the MVP version of what we expect to keep up if everything falls apart? What cannot fall apart as a team? So we're canceling team meetings, we're canceling stand-ups, we're in crisis mode, everything's like running around like chickens with our heads cut off. What routines as a team do we keep as the minimum? So that's a great thing to help things running and have your crisis mode kind of covered. Number three for me, prioritization of tasks is the next level of planning, and putting a cut line in those tasks and focusing on hitting that cut line first will remove stress, make more realistic expectations, and give the team a feeling of succeeding by achieving more than the MVP instead of constantly underachieving the high expectations left for them. On top of that, people who succeed and have a feeling of achievement will always perform better. Think about maybe your own lives. When you got positive reinforcement, when you were told that you were succeeding, I'm guessing you went and did more of that. Whereas the times you were told that you failed and failed again, I'm guessing that your motivation kind of went down. So perform better, hear that as more effectively than those who often feel like they've not reached expectations. Good, so prioritizing, important, putting a cut line as, here's our MVP, beautiful. MVP and daily planning. For those of us that enjoy planning, we can still implement something from the Antiplanner, in the sense that for each day, we have a list of things that we want to accomplish, and we can plan them out throughout the day. But we can also prioritize those things and make a cut line for the minimum that we want to achieve for that day, or that an individual achieves in a week. Then anything else we do, we can see as a bonus and feel great about ourselves instead of being frustrated by last-minute meetings and things, and then stay in the office 4 hours longer to meet our expectations for ourselves, and then go home feeling bad that we didn't get to relax and spend time with the family. This can also be implemented with family life, exercise, and diet, for example. As an example, to have an MVP of 1 hour a day with family, or an MVP of 15 minutes of basic exercise. What is that minimum that you need to feel good about yourself and to be effective then during the workday? Last piece on this for me, we can take in MVP a bit further and add what I'd call a Pareto line. So using the Pareto principle of 80-20, having 80% of the work done for 20% of effort, we've all heard this also 1,000,005 times. We can, on any list, make an MVP cut line. So here's what has to be done, cut. And then the 80% cut line, where anything under it takes too much effort to achieve in comparison to the results being produced. So MVP, cut, middle, bonus activities, 80% cut, 20% below, too much effort. Perfectionism is not helpful when it comes to being effective. Let me say that again. Being a perfectionist is something that makes you ineffective, not more effective. Perfectionists spend time on details rather than moving towards the larger goal effectively. Setting that 80% cutoff line, and maybe not even showing those other items to the team, may be key to focusing on the bigger goals rather than having perfection, but moving very slowly. Because Pareto says that the last 20% of the work takes 80% of the effort. So, effective meetings. In the last 15 minutes or so, we're going to talk about meetings. The reason for that is because a lot of people complain that their biggest waste of time are meetings that they didn't need to be at, or that they aren't effective. So everyone stop everything else you're doing right now and focus in. This is something you don't want to miss. Get out your pen and paper. This is going to be an amazing takeaway. So do me a favor, refocus, put your phones down, put your cooking down, put your games down, refocus in. This is something I don't want you to miss. See what I did there? I bet I got your attention. And you made the space to listen and focus in because you're about to receive value. I love to plan in a point like this for every meeting I have, especially where I'm presenting, where I regather attention and we have the main takeaway from the meeting. You can plan it halfway through or plan it at the beginning, it doesn't matter. Ask people to refocus, put down whatever else they're doing, come back to you, write down something. Those are huge. This is a huge technique to productivity in terms of having effective meetings, as you'll have focus when you need it the most from all the participants. Set a goal. For every meeting, needs to be a goal set. Feel free to write it into the meeting invite directly. When there's a clear goal of the meeting, then you have a much higher opportunity to have a successful meeting and not waste everyone's time. By having a goal, you also give the other party the option to prepare for the meeting. That goal might be to learn what the other is working on. If you have a one-to-one, for example, brainstorm, hear complaints of people, plan the upcoming week, what have you. And this goal needs to be repeated every time at every meeting before the meeting starts. For me, that's huge. And again, applies to one-to-ones as well. So many one-to-ones have zero purpose. You're chatting, figuring out maybe what the other person is working on, what the priorities are maybe, but it's not driven. It's just a chat oftentimes. Maybe the goal is to just chat. Fantastic. Make that the goal so the other party knows that you just want to chat with them and maybe get to know them better. That's okay, but let them know what it is so that you can drive towards that. Use the joining minutes to go over meeting expectations. At the beginning of meetings, we chat, talk about nothing, sometimes complain, or sit quietly the first 5 minutes of meetings while people join in. That's something rather normal, but usually also wasted time and space that people often, especially in home office, get distracted and start working on something else before the meeting even started. You've lost people's attention before you've even started, right? they're off working on something else. Instead, this is a great time to recap the expectations or the meeting schedule and for participants to get into the right headspace for that topic. That might look something like this. Welcome in, everyone. In the invite to the meeting, you have the goal of this meeting and the schedule of what we're going to go over. Please go through that now. Get aligned to thinking about the topic on hand and start thinking about any questions you'd like to have answered on this topic as we go through the meeting, as we wait for others to join. Cool. Return to the goal throughout the meeting. Many people love to get off topic during meetings. Believe me, I'm one of them. The off topic is very easy to do. It is okay to cut someone off and remind them of the goal of the meeting. Again, it is not rude to cut someone off and remind them of the goal of the meeting if they're really going off path. Might look like this. Thanks, John, for the input. But I'd like to remind everyone that our goal today is to plan the upcoming week, for which we have a clear list of tasks. So please, let's return to achieving that, and we'll tackle that topic at a later time in a different meeting. As the PM, if it's your meeting, it is your responsibility to own, keep on track, and direct the discussion towards accomplishing things within the meeting timeframe. Cool. Give the other party space to prepare. Many people like going to a meeting with clear expectations on what it's going to be about. That means having a goal and a schedule in the meeting invite. Goal and schedule, goal and agenda. We can take that even further by planning 10 or 15 minutes before the meeting. Yeah, I said before, especially for brainstorming sessions for the group to clear their heads and brainstorm on their own before jumping into the group activity. We often talk about not continuing longer in meetings, but blocking time before meetings to change context, prep, develop some ideas is something that I've not seen used enough anywhere. Give people space before they join your brainstorming session to come up with some ideas themselves. Acknowledge, validate, call out, and express genuinity. Close enough. Many people like going to a meeting with clear expectations. excuse me. Yeah. Possibly the most difficult group can be those that never speak up, or those that often complain or speak up on irrelevant topics. We want to create an open atmosphere for sharing, speaking opinions, and growing as a team to achieve the project, product, program goal. The first thing we want to do is to be as genuinely interested in others and their opinions as possible. I want to know you. I am interested in what you're saying, and we need to show that. If we show that we're not genuinely interested in what someone's saying, they're not going to want to say it. This is something that can be trained, can be worked on, and we need to genuinely show that interest and try to understand others. Only when they feel welcome and accepted, then once they've shared, we can acknowledge their idea and their sharing by saying thank you and that their additions have value. Then lastly, if we're having low input, we can feel free to call out certain individuals to share, to show that getting out of their comfort zone and adding is important to you as the product or program manager. But if you do this, then you have to be ready to be supportive no matter what they say. Do not, please, ask for input and then tell someone that it was wrong or not what you were looking for. That's a good way for no one else to speak up. This might look something like this. I know this is a complicated topic, but I'd really appreciate your input on this, as you're just as much experts on the topic as I am. Jenny, what do you think? Absolutely fantastic. Thank you for sharing. That makes absolute sense, and I think that we all have felt that at times. I hear that's a problem that you're facing. What do you think might be the solution to that if you want to get that brainstorming result? Good. Bonus here. In order to effectively and nicely validate others, we want to have a place to put things that don't meet the expectations of the meeting. So we have that goal, we're trying to achieve something pops up that's a bit off topic. I recommend having a problem list, team problem list, or project problem list, program problem list, what have you, and new ideas list that can be added to at any time, especially during meetings, and then has a scheduled time to go over those items, if that's once a week, once a month, what have you. Those are super helpful to keeping on track because you can write something down, return to the meeting, and know you will get back to them in time. Good. Last thoughts from my side. There we go. In order to be effective, a person has to think about relaxation and rest. The same goes for a project, product, or program. If your team is burnt out, then you're not going to achieve much. Don't kill your team. Don't overwork your team. Be an example of someone who takes care of themselves, and you'll find success because you're rested, not unnerved, and you're ready to deal with the challenges of the day. Resting, relaxing is also extremely key to being effective. If you want to be effective, that is necessary. So this was stated originally by Brian Dyson, the CEO of Coca-Cola in 1996. Imagine life as a game in which you are juggling 5 balls in the air. You name them: work, family, health, friends, and spirit. And you're keeping all of those in the air. You soon understand that work is a rubber ball. If you drop it, it will bounce back. But the other 4 balls, family, health, friends, and spirit, these are all made of glass. If you drop one of these, they will be irrevocably scuffed, marked, nicked, damaged, or even shattered. They will never be the same. You must understand that and strive for balance in your life. The CEO of Google just repeated this very recently to all of his employees coming after COVID. So what does this quote lead us to practically? Self-care, family, health, friends, emotional care as a priority. It's great to also return to the quote that when everyone cares for themselves, then everyone in the world is taken care of. Please keep in mind that caring for oneself also means having the courage to seek a professional for mental health services. Same way a person goes to the doctor when they're not feeling well, or to a trainer when they want to build muscle, there are professionals here to help you with your mental health, building strength mentally, achieving success, conquering your fears, stress, and anxieties, moving past crisis and trauma, dealing with family or work conflict, basically any challenge you have and aren't satisfied with the result of, or the speed at which it's moving, there is someone out there to help you achieve your version of success. So take care of those things first. Work will always bounce back. Good. So don't hesitate to reach out. I know we will try and answer some questions now if we have them. Yeah, so I'd love to thank everyone for being here. I know we'll get to questions in a minute, but I hope that you took a few ideas and takeaways into your daily PM work. From my side, I do individual coaching and therapies with clients on a daily basis. Currently have 2 slots available for clients, and we focus on things such as stress and anxiety reduction, performance, career pathing, motivation, and living your values, among much else. I also conduct plenty of workshops on topics other than effectivity, including work-life balance, conflict management, personality types, and team understanding, as well as custom workshops, where I work with a manager to put together a workshop specific for that company, such as recently I did a workshop on suicide prevention and returning to work. So thank you very much. John, do we have some questions?
Not yet. The floor is open for questions. You can submit it through the Q&A tab or the chat window. And as you think about questions, let me just make a comment. Thank you, Court, for one, for agreeing to do this. But you evoked yet another idea, like the cliff analogy and feeling like I'm going to like fall over the cliff, and but yet the cliff is made of, you know, vegetation, and it's not eroding as fast as you think it is, and your bedrock is your family, so you may be safer than you think you are. That's a thought you evoked a few weeks ago. But another one in this meeting that you evoked was the common I think complaint about planning is it's never done. And so I was going to ask, well, when do you think it's planning? When is planning done? And then the next slide with your conversation about MVP, I thought, what about an MVP for a project plan where it's good enough? It's not perfect, but we all agree basically, and this is what we're going to do. And you iterate a little bit, but the bulk of the planning, the heavy lifting might be done because you have enough consensus and alignment to move forward. What are your thoughts of an MVP for a project plan so we can feel like planning kind of has an end? We can move on to other things. Did we lose?
I don't know.
Oh, we might have lost Court.
Yeah, he seems frozen.
He's frozen. Okay, let's see if he's. I'm sure he'll rejoin.
Yeah, we did lose him.
We have. Let's see if we have any questions coming in. There's Court.
Yeah,
Hey, Court. Welcome back. Okay. You're on mute. Did you hear the comment about like an MVP for a project plan?
I did, and
okay.
I practice that. I do that. Absolutely. Yes, 100%. MVP for a product plan. Do the minimum first, get going on it, and iterate. Or even like in terms of project phases, my recommendation is to create the project plan leading up to that phase. So normally I would create a project plan for design or define and measure to start with. And then once I finish define, then I'll add implement. Once I've finished measure, then I will add the control phase or yeah, something like that.
Yeah, all right.
So that's another version, I think, of the same as what you're talking about. So add those big milestones and fill in as you go. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. There's also another concept that I've used before about effective meetings, and it's the silent meeting, where you have a document that you send out beforehand. And the purpose of the meeting is to introduce the document, especially Google Docs, where you can comment in line or the Office suite with Word. And you say, all right, take 15 minutes, read and make comments. And at the end of 15 minutes, we're going to talk about your comments. Ready? Go. And then you give people time to read and digest. And it's a really effective, so it's quiet, right? No one's saying anything for 15 minutes, but you're all online together and you're watching other people's comments and you're getting provoked by ideas and like, oh, I didn't think of that, or that's a good catch, or, oh, I know the answer to that. And at the end of the 15 minutes, now people start talking. And it's challenging to get through if there's a lot of comments in a half-hour meeting. But if you let the silence bake a little bit and let people think, that might be a way to get the more effective feedback from someone in a meeting, especially if they're introverts and they need time to think. Whereas extroverts like me tend to just not think about things before we say them, and just whatever comes to our mind is out there. Something to try.
Absolutely. So yes, I love doing that. Silent time in meetings, either, excuse me, for me, it's a bit the same. So either you plan that silent time to be on a call together, or you plan that time for those people to do that work. If you can trust your team to do something when you ask them to, it can be planned without everyone being online. But yeah, absolutely. Same thing as I was talking about, and I love doing that. It creates focus. It creates, especially when we're working at home, a team atmosphere. Really nice. Absolutely love that, John. Thank you for adding.
And it just occurs to me that a silent meeting incorporates two of your recommendations. One is a strong anchor for a focus, which is the document, and the goal being, we want your comments. And by the end of the meeting, you automatically have them because it's an artifact that gets produced in the meeting itself. So you leave with a really good iteration of different things. Anyway, I hope there's, if there, someone in the audience not only has a question, but a suggestion or a reaction. I know there are a couple things that Cord said that I actually disagree with, and I'll have to see him offline and debate him about a few things, about multitasking, for example.
Happy to take those on.
Yeah.
For me, I'd maybe comment that now. For me, when you are multitasking at a point when you need to focus on something, you're going to be much slower in both things. You're taking your attention, splitting it in two, and at that moment, or splitting it into five for some people that have the TV going and kids talking in the background, your ability to focus and get things done quickly and effectively goes down. To me, it's as simple as that.
Yep.
Or I don't know, like I very long time ago worked on support, and you would be working on something and get bombarded by people in 5 different channels. I would have a to-do list and never get to it because I was always answering messages.
All right. I'll give you my
that didn't work.
I'll give you my multitasking techniques. I will. I'll talk to you offline about some ways that I have not dropped either ball and been moderately effective on both counts.
So moderately effective, absolutely. Most effective, I'd question which one comes out on top, but no, sure. In the end, it probably ends up being the same, but focusing will give on each task the quality that normally we would be looking for in work.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's good. I look forward to talking with you on that thread. But yes, if anyone else has a question, we've got, how do we do it on time? Right on time. Okay. So we're at time.
And it's completely okay to disagree with me. I did want to say that is absolutely acceptable.
Yeah, that's cool. I appreciate that. Okay, so if you do have questions, of course, you see on the screen, you see Cord's email and contact info, website. I want to thank you again, Cord, for taking the time to present your techniques and tips for us to be more effective as either product program or project managers. This is going to be, the recording will be posted later, and Shelley will send out that link. So that's about it. I just want to check one quick thing. Okay, Joe or Shelley, any final thoughts?
I just wanted to clarify one thing because I misspoke at the beginning of this call when I was saying it was the third Wednesday of each other month. It's not, it's the second one. And I assume you already all know that because you're on this call, but John had it right. It's the second Wednesday of alternating months. And thank you very much for joining, and spread the word. Tell other people, and we'll build this into a larger community where it's we can all make friends and contacts.
Very good.
Yeah, sounds
Great.
great. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for joining, everybody. We'll see you next month for QA/SIG, and then in December for the next PMSIG.
Fantastic.
Thank you all for having me.
Yeah, thanks,
Court.
Court.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good night.